Hi, the Pragmatic Luthier, back again. Uh, I like to use colored purflings quite often in my guitars, as I'm sure some of you do. The trouble is with this, you want to buy colored purflings or colored veneers to make them out of. Oop, there you go with that umbilical cord between you and a supplier again, because you get the colors that they have, the colors that they make. Well, what about different colors that you may want? I got a pragmatic solution for you. This one works very well. You're going to need, obviously, your purfling that you're going to dye. Now, my particular need today is for wider strips like these because I'm going to use these to laminate onto a binding. So mine are wider, but you can do this any way you want with respect to, the width of your material. It does need to be thin enough to get the dye through it. How thick can that be? I'm not sure. I've never tried anything more than about 40 thousandths of an inch. Uh, you're going to need a roll of Teflon tape. Yep, weird. And you're going to need a PVC pipe cap, threaded, and a gasket inside of it. And you're going to need a length of PVC pipe. This length is about 36 inches long. You need it long enough um, so that you could get a length of binding or a length of purfling that would equal the length of a binding in there. And you'll need a cap to glue on the end of it with the proper cement. And you'll want an air fitting. And you can get any of this stuff at the big box stores, including these air fittings. Now, you will need to have a tap to put that in there with, but that should be readily available too at most hardware stores, big box stores, or Harbor Freight, something like that. You can make all of this work pretty easy. And at the end of this, I really, to be honest, don't know what they call the fitting, but this is a female fitting that will glue down on your PVC pipe with a male threaded end so that this cap fits over it. Pretty simple, huh? Your pipe diameter, there's a compromise there. I have some that are 1.5 inches, some that are 1.25 inches. The larger you make the pipe, the more dye you have to put in it. So I find that usually 1.25 inches is about big enough. But if you use an alternate method, you could get away with even strips of 1/2 or 3/4 inch PVC pipe. Uh, but we'll discuss that alternate method later on. I've mixed up the amount of dye that I need to do this job. And to figure out how much of that stuff I need, I calculate the volume of the tube that I want to fill and then mix, roughly 75% of that volume. You could probably get away with a little bit less. Now, the manufacturer of the dye may have specific instructions as to how much dye you use per quart or pint or whatever of water, but those are never chiseled in stone. You can vary the amount of dye that you put in the water to get the specific color or the density of the color that you're after. And of course, you can use more than one color in the water, and that's how you would arrive at specific colors and shades that you're after. I use water-soluble aniline dyes. These are just two examples of those. These are not available in the big box stores, of course, but they are available at woodworkers and finishers supplies. I'm sure they're readily available. They're not cheap, but you make an awful lot of stain with one of these little containers. So by the time you get everything said and done, they're really a pretty good deal. Now, I use water-soluble dyes. You can buy alcohol-soluble dyes. I don't use those because if I'm going to spend my money on alcohol, I'm going to get a lot more pleasure out of it than making color. And you can buy, I think there are oil-soluble aniline dyes, but all of that just adds cost and adds to making more and more of a mess. And when you're done with this, disposal can become a problem if you're using alcohol and oil as your medium. So I have my stuff mixed up. I just use, this, whatever measuring cup you want to use, you can figure that out. And warning, you're going to need gloves of some kind to protect your hands, because if you just touch that stuff a little bit, you're going to have that dye all over you. And if you get a little bit on the end of your finger, pretty soon it'll be on your elbow, then it'll be on your shirt collar, then it'll be on your backside. Stuff is worse than driveway sealer. So all precautions must be taken, including protecting your work area, because this stuff goes everywhere and it spatters. It's an awful mess. So I'm going to do this outdoors. I'm outside my shop, and I've even got a scrap of masonite under my feet because this stuff will go everywhere. But I'm sure you can imagine what's going to happen here. We're just going to put these strips down into the tube. You're going to want a funnel. That's absolutely important. And if I can coordinate all of this here with these gloves on to protect myself, I'm just going to pour the dye in. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's, you know, dripping here and there. So you gotta watch out. All right, so far so good. We've got the dye in. Going to drop the funnel and let it drip on the auxiliary surface. So now I've dared to bring this thing back in the shop, and I've got the tube, the pipe, trapped in my vise here a little bit so I can work on it. And I just went around those threads with a couple of layers of Teflon tape. It's just a good idea to do that, I think, because you need these threads sealed real tight. And I have these gaskets in these fittings, and I'm not even positive that that does anything really that good, but you're going to screw that down on there, and probably by hand is tight enough, but I'm not certain, and the cost of making a mistake is too high. So I just take a pair of slip joint pliers and I tighten that on there. Now, I mentioned that I'm using PVC pipe. I'm not a plumber, so I can't quote chapter and verse here, but I believe what you're after is schedule 40 PVC pipe, the heavy stuff. Don't get soil and drain pipe. That won't do it. And you want the heavier stuff because you're going to put pressure on it. So I've got that tightened up to where I figure I'm good to go. And now comes, so the last thing you're going to do is you're going to bring this thing over to your air compressor, or if you have an air pump in your shop, and if you don't have that, you could use a bicycle pump for this. It would work just as well. And we're going to put about 50 pounds of air pressure against this thing. And you'll notice I have my gloves on again, and I've got a rag here to protect things, because I promise you that when you hit this with the air, some of that liquid is likely to spatter back out of there. So you got to kind of be ready for it. And you can see what I mean there. There's the spatter. So keep that from running across your shop or getting in your face, or, you know, nobody wants that. So I've got air pressure on this, and I stand around here for a little bit and just check for any leakage around your threaded connections. Make sure your glued connection is still good, because sometimes if that goes bad, you know, you lose pressure and it'll push the dye right out of it, make a mess. And for my own convenience, I just put a piece of tape on this and put the date on it. That way I know if I'm busy in the shop and I kind of forget about things, I know when I put this together. And I store these horizontally. If you store them vertically, if there's any liquid missing here, of course, it won't even affect these upper portions of the material. So I store horizontally, and what I try to do is remember, every day or two when I'm in the shop, just come through and rotate these. You know, just whatever they're racked on, just rotate them a half a turn, or full turn or something, just to keep things circulating around. This method, I've found, I can put this dye through here at about 50 pounds per square inch. I can put this dye through that purfling and those thin strips in about 5 to 7 days. And I'm using hard maple. Now, it might go faster if you have a softer material like poplar, which I've never used, but I understand poplar can take the dye even better than maple does. At any rate, you can experiment with that and probably come up with results better than I get. But there's the whole deal. Now, I mentioned that you could do this another way. you could use another smaller tube, even a 3/4 inch piece of PVC water pipe if you want, and uh, a threaded cap on that without the air pressure. If you have no way of putting air pressure on this, you can still do it. You just put this whole thing together minus the air, and it's just going to take longer. Uh, I started doing this without the air, and it seemed to take 2 or 3 weeks to get this done. And even then, you'd cut into the edge of the purfling, and you'd see the dye start to dissipate. It would begin to disappear because it didn't penetrate thoroughly. So I like this method a lot better. And as I said, with this method, you can make up any color you want to, and you're not beholden to whoever is producing the veneers or the purfling strips at the time, to get their particular yellows and blacks or whatever they have. So it's just that easy. Whoop, damn near killed myself on my bandsaw. So thanks an awful lot for watching this. Hope you'll put a like on it. Hope you'll subscribe to my channel. This is the Pragmatic Luthier, Kevin Ledoux, wishing you all a very, very happy holiday wherever you are. And see you next time.